answers? I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
I woke up this morning, got myself a gun. Mama always said I'd be the chosen one.
Federal court has just blocked the bulk of President Trump's sweeping global tariffs from going into effect. The ruling comes from the U.S. Court of International Trade in Manhattan. It's a unique and relatively low-key division of the federal judiciary, but tonight it is flexing its authority in a big way. The three-judge panel ruled in favor of an injunction against the tariffs which have roiled worldwide financial markets in recent months. Unclear right now whether the injunction is temporary or permanent, but the decision is potentially massive political, economic, and legal repercussions. Just moments ago, White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller wrote online, "The judicial coup is out of control."
I love that line. The White House Chief of Staff Miller saying, the judicial coup is out of line. We're talking about the constant, persistent drip, flood water coming, swamping you out. The left lawfare continues against Trump on every turn. No one on the other side is considering what good could come with what Trump's doing. Even if they recognize it, they don't want it to happen. How much do they hate our country that they want to continually fight this man and his plans to make us better? And if you think that by getting lower trade tariffs and fair trade would be beneficial to America, it would. They probably know it as well, but they're going to fight it. They're going to claim you don't have the authority. That was Anderson Cottonmouth Cooper from CNN announcing how that injunction had come down last night. And sure enough, looking at the way CNN puts it on their front page today, and it's probably changing when you look at it, if you're not looking right now, tariffs and Trump's entire economic agenda just thrown into chaos. Total chaos. And, of course, this is the last day for Musk. He's off the job now. And he did go out upset that a lot of the things he worked to try to save and cut money back can't put back in with the increased level on the debt ceiling. I'm not in favor of that. We will have to wait and see how that plays out. But they're trying to say there's a little cut right there against Trump. We can drive deeper and make it more injurious to him and his party as they approach 2026 and certainly 2028. But the thing you have to buy from them is that Trump is doing nothing that will help the U.S. That's a lie. That's a flat-out lie. Do we know exactly how it will help and in whatever levels, how many might be hurt in the process? Still very unclear. I will be the first to admit that. But if you don't understand basic economics, that, hey, if we pay less, then it should work. It should work if the others are paying more. Now, I'm looking at a piece from Kevin Hassett, who is the chief of the Trump's National Economic Council, and he's saying already his first response to this, brushing off the ruling, saying this is a mere hiccup in the Trump plans. All right, we'll break it down for you. Glad to have you with us on board. Now we're number one. Larry Connors USA. Here we are, May 30. We're about to close this month out, May 30. Are you telling me it's not May 30? Of course it's May 30. Don't be doing that to me. Is it not May 30? No, it's not Thursday. Yes, it is Thursday. Quentin once again calling to my attention. Hey, Larry, hey, stupid over there. It's not May 30, it's May 29. I've got it written right here in front of me. Why would I say? Well, actually, it's written down here May 30. Where did that come from? I've got moles in my operation here. I certainly wouldn't have made that mistake. It's on me, no one else. So what I was saying to make sure it's clear. We're close to May 30 tomorrow, and even closer to the end of the month. There. Not an apology, not meant to be one. It's a simple, poor effort at a cover-up. I need to hire some Democrat strategists to do the cover-up for me. They know better. They know how to do it. But this chaos upon chaos, there are a lot of questions about the ruling from the court that is basically stopping Trump from carrying out the tariffs, because where does that stand with these that are already in place and getting ready to be signed? How will it happen? How will the other nations react? I mean, will they be joyous about it, or will they think, we had a good deal going here. Now we have to go back to the drawing board? We'll have to see how it plays out. That I will acknowledge. But as always, glad to have you on board, reminding you when we're on the air, we are streaming video. Be it May 29th or May 30th or May 31st, we'll be streaming video. If we're on the air for you from 6 to 8, Monday through Friday. The 31st is Saturday. I know that. I have a reason to know that. It's Tequila Day. Well, in some circles. But this issue we have in front of us just reemphasizes why we want you on board all the time, to see what's happening, how they're trying to pull things around and make them look shiny and bright, or dented, damaged railroad goods salvage. If it comes from Trump, it's got to be railroad salvage. If they come up with the idea, it's perfect. So when we're on the air, we're also streaming video for you. You can watch the program. You go to NewsTalkSTL. You go to Larry Connors USA. Rumble on either one of them. NewsTalkSTL Rumble, Larry Connors USA Rumble. And also reminding you they're available at Facebook and Twitter. And if you miss anything, you go to LarryConnorsUSA.com, pull up the podcast, or at NewsTalkSTL and pull up the podcast. So you will not miss it. But we can also send it to you directly to your email. If you just share your email with us at LarryConnorsUSA.com, we'll send it to you every day. You don't have to go look for it. It's right there in your box, so you can listen when you have full time. And when you do, then share with others. We want more to get involved. Later in this hour, for the FBI Assistant Director Bongino talks about cocaine in the White House. And he's really angry about the attitude of those who had knowledge of the cocaine in the White House. Is he close to naming someone? That's later in this hour. Next hour, who was using the presidential auto pen when Biden obviously was either out of the White House or just out of his mind or out nowhere? Somebody was. We need answers on that as well. So with Larry Connors USA, as always, you're going to get news, you're going to get analysis, you're going to get opinion, and you're definitely going to get education. If nothing else, you're going to learn that today is May 30. I can poke fun of myself as well as anyone else. But this judicial coup, as Steve Miller of the White House said, with us taking place on everything Trump does. Ali Honig is a lawyer for CNN, and he says, I take exception at that wording.
I should note, this was a 3-0 opinion. The 3 judges on this court were appointed by President Reagan, President Obama, and President Trump. So I don't know where they're getting this coup language from. This is a huge setback for Trump and his administration. As big a deal as the tariffs were, this is as big a deal in the opposite direction. It essentially pauses, for now, rules illegal and unconstitutional, almost all of the tariffs that have been in place. And the core of the ruling is this. Typically, it is Congress that controls the tariff power. However, Congress can pass laws giving that power to the president in certain instances. They did that years ago in a statute called the IEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Trump then declared, okay, we are in an international economic emergency because of our trade deficits, because of other economic worldwide factors. And this court unanimously 3-0 said, that is not an economic emergency. That is not what the law means. Having trade deficits, which we've had for 49 years continuously, that is not an economic emergency and has now struck down for the time being all of those tariffs that were put in place on Trump's first day and then on quote-unquote Liberation Day, April 2nd.
All right, and again, he pointed out it's not a national emergency in the view of this court at this time. It was also not a national emergency when Joe Biden was draining our oil reserves and putting more oil into the pumps for you to buy gasoline at cheaper rates going into the November election. If the right had played the game the left does, we would have been hitting them with lawfare and putting a stop to that immediately. But, of course, you know who would have been crying out? Look, they're hurting the American people. They want you to pay more for gas. Well, the reason you were paying more is because of Biden's other policies. And, yes, I still would consider this as a national emergency. $37 trillion. We have a national emergency, and we're trying to resolve it one way or the other. David Axelrod, who served with the Obama administration on these tariffs.
Trump loves tariffs. We know that. He thinks it's a cure-all for all of America's problems. It will, raise revenues. It'll bring jobs flowing back here, manufacturing jobs. It will restore American respect and balance in the way. All of this. But, in a weird way, I mean, in the short run, I think it creates a lot of havoc because everyone's trying to figure out when this, in the long run, it could save him from himself because these tariffs are bad economic policy, and these tariffs could raise costs on Americans. They're already starting to. So if the result of it is he's stymied in doing something that's going to raise costs for people, it may be a black eye, but it may also be a break for him.
Just legally, what's the recourse for the White House here?
So like any other federal case, this will be appealed. I think the first thing the White House is going to do is ask the Court of Appeals, which in this case is called the Federal Circuit. Usually the circuits are 1st through 11th. This is separate. They're going to ask the Federal Circuit, first of all, to block this ruling, essentially to unblock the tariffs. Then the White House is going to appeal to the Federal Circuit, which again functions as that mid-level Court of Appeals. And then whoever loses there, I think, is very likely to appeal up to the U.S. Supreme Court. This could wind up in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. And how long could that take? Well, if they expedite it, it could be done quickly. And I think it needs to be expedite. You want to battle over this? Let's go to it. Step into the ring. Let's go right now. Drop your gloves. Go at it. Again, the views of Alex Honig and Axelrod. If we look at the recent U.S. Supreme Court opinions, they've been skeptical of these sort of dramatic invocations by the administration. As one example, the Supreme Court has found that the Alien Enemies Act, this does not involve an invasion or an incursion. So I think there's some skepticism there towards this sort of tendency the administration has of calling everything an emergency, everything an attack, everything an incursion, rebellion, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we know is that Trump is not a great respecter of rules and laws and norms and institutions, doesn't want to be constrained, wants to expand the power of the executive, and declaring these emergencies has given him the legal pretext to do it.
How can you guys sit there, look into the audience, and not even break a smile talking about how Trump doesn't like the laws and so forth, when you know Biden was ignoring them and the auto pen is a big issue? And we'll come to that a little bit later. But one other summation here. The Deputy Assistant General has said these adverse decisions would kneecap the president on the world stage, and it will. So we need to get them turned around as quickly as we can. Secretary of State Rubio, meanwhile, says we will aggressively work to deport Chinese students who clearly are connected to the Communist Party or working on sensitive studies.
Welcome back. The State Department has announced it will begin revoking visas for Chinese students. Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying that his department will, quote, aggressively revoke visas for Chinese students, including those with connections to the Chinese Communist Party or those studying in critical fields. We will also revise visa criteria, he said, to enhance scrutiny of all future visa applications from the People's Republic of China and Hong Kong. Beijing strongly opposes the move, accusing the United States of unjustly revoking visas under the pretext of ideology and national security. Joining me now is Gatestone Institute senior fellow and the author of Plan Red, China's Project to Destroy America, Gordon Chang. Gordon, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. And we know that the Chinese Communist Party has been abusing student visas for decades. Your reaction?
Yes, well, the 2017 National Intelligence Law of China requires Chinese nationals to commit acts of espionage if demanded. But also the Communist Party's top-down system means that no Chinese national can disobey an order from the party. So China has weaponized students, and it's about time we recognize that. And I think that Secretary Rubio did exactly the right thing. You know, people may say this is drastic, but we had a situation which was an emergency, and finally, we got an administration willing to do something about it.
And about time. And you know Gordon G. Chang, who's often on board with us. And he's talking about how they've been getting away with all of this.
They get away with it because we let them get away with it. So, for instance, we allow Ministry of State Security agents and Chinese consular officials to monitor, coerce, and surveil Chinese students on our campuses. And they do that at every place where there are a large concentration of Chinese students. So this is on us, Maria. And finally, you know, we're going to say, no, we're not going to allow this to occur on our own soil.
Joe Biden completely allowed it, and he canceled the China initiative. Right. Explain it, Gordon.
Yeah, the China initiative came from the first Trump administration, where the FBI and the Justice Department were going to have enhanced security investigations of Chinese nationals and others who had very suspicious relationships with the Communist Party. And the Biden administration, one of the first things they did when the president took the oath of office was to cancel it. They said it was racist. Well, no, it's not racist, because China has weaponized its own nationals.
And Senator Kennedy of Louisiana says, you got to watch these Chinese spies in our country.
I welcome international students. I don't welcome international students who come here and break the law. I don't welcome international students who come here and threaten our national security. The Chinese Communist Party has a horrific record of sending students to America to do that. And we do need to be careful. It would be nice if some of our universities, like Harvard, would help us screen these students.
Bongino and cocaine found in the White House coming up. Lock and load ready on the right. You don't want to miss it. Please stand by.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
In all these years that Wellington Environmental has been my sponsor, I've never mentioned their duct cleaning services. Allergy season is here, and Wellington crews clean air ducts daily in homes and commercial buildings, also cleaning air handling units and diffusers in commercial facilities. Why? Well, because people will see black dirt and mold on the vents, or they are actually suffering from allergies. Don't be fooled by low-cost duct cleaning providers saying they charge only per vent, because once they get on site, the price will skyrocket. Wellington does not do this, never has. Wellington will give you an estimate, and you say Larry Connors, and immediately you get a 20% discount. Call Cindy, 314-644-4930, 314-644-4930. Make your home and business better, safer with Wellington. Be well with Wellington. Ackerman Toyota is #1 in sales for 2024. That is 2 years in a row. It's really no surprise. Ackerman has the largest customer lounge where you can relax, take your time choosing new or premium pre-owned. Ackerman at Hampton and 44. AckermanToyota.com. Thank you for making Ackerman Toyota #1 2 years in a row. AckermanToyota.com. Ackerman Toyota for life. John Beal Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season And that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill. The Oak Street Inn and Lounge has some great news. The Speakeasy will now be open on Sundays, starting at 2. Open to the public. Great for those in the industry who'll want to enjoy a Sunday fun day. Plus, enjoy sushi and cocktails. What more could you want? You want to make sure you get the code. And how do you get the code to the Speakeasy? You go to the Facebook, Oak Street Inn and Lounge Facebook. I'll see you at Oak Street Inn and Lounge in Cottleville.
This is News Talk STL.
Had me, girl, taught me those things a young man should know. Down on my knees and begging, I plead to learn a little bit more. Oh, that woman taught me to pray. I saw heaven every day, and all she could.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
The moment Cash and I swore in, we realized that the first thing we had to do is rebuild public trust. This is your FBI. It's not mine. I tell the employees every day, you don't own it, you don't own it, I don't own it. It's like being the center fielder for the Yankees. That'll live with you forever, but you don't own the Yankees. It's a proud franchise. The place has taken a reputational hit. There is zero question about it. There were a lot of bad actors. One of them still out there causing us all kinds of trouble. So we had to fix it and rebuild public trust. One of the ways to do it is these cases of significant public interest that matter. You know, we had 2 pipe bombs planted on January 6th. I mean, we were told by partisan actors out there this was the insurrection, the world was going to fall apart, and no one seemed to show any interest in this case. The second we got in, I put a team on it, and I said, I want answers on this. And I'm pretty confident that we're closing in on some suspects. The reason, by the way, I use social media with these cases, I'm trying to communicate on social media, is nothing's by accident, guys. I do nothing by accident. Every time I put a tweet out on it, we get tips. We got a fascinating tip on one of these cases, one of the 3. I don't want to say which one, but I'm pretty confident that we're going to close out one of them, hopefully shortly.
That is Dan Bongino appearing on Fox News. There are 3 cases he's discussing. One is the pipe bombing, the bombs that were placed around the DNC headquarters and the RNC headquarters on January 6th. Pictures of this guy walking around leaving the bombs, and nobody has identified him. They couldn't find him, even though they could grab thousands of people who happened to be in D.C. that day and within 3 blocks of the Capitol and maybe consider that they were, quote, insurrectionists. The other being cocaine in the White House. He says we're getting closer on that. And, of course, we have other issues as well that they're trying to deal with. But I want you to understand something. If you watch, and I know you don't, I do that job for you so you don't have to. But if you watch and listen to the leftist media, you know what their response is? Here's a headline from MSNBC. Facing criticism from the right, the FBI's Dan Bongino revives the Biden-era cases. In other words, he's doing it only because he's being criticized. He's not doing it for the possibility of law and order and a reckoning and making someone pay for what they did. No, he's doing it just because he needs to appease the right. That's exactly the way it's written. It said the FBI deputy director could have shrugged off recent criticism from the fringe. Instead, he appears to be taking steps to make the right happy. The author is Steve Bannon with MSNBC. Now, the ad when right-wing provocateur and podcaster Dan Bongino became the FBI deputy director in March. Conservative activists had every right to be delighted. The ad, after all, several years was telling them what they wanted to hear, which you declared my entire life right now is about owning the libs. That's it. The libs, because they've shown themselves to be pure, unadulterated evil. You cannot argue that point. Oh, I know you try, but you really can't. So the New York Times had one of their people in a recent column write, when a New York jury found Donald Trump guilty on 34 felony counts last year, Bongino made a veiled threat on social media. The irony about this for the scumbag commie libs is that the cold civil war they're pushing will end really bad for them. The liberals, according to Bongino, said, you've been playing in revolution. Now you're going to get a taste of the real thing, and they're not going to be ready. But, of course, then he's in office. Everybody wants to know, well, what about the J-6 bomber? What about the Jeffrey Epstein case? What about the cocaine in the White House? And because answers aren't coming fast enough, we have members of the right getting upset, according to MSNBC. I'm looking at another piece from the Daily Beast. And I'm going to do this in more detail later before we wrap up this hour. But the title is, Dan Bongino hates the FBI and feels like he's an outsider. That's pretty much it. And then adds that he is dying inside. But all these folks are doing is trying to make it clear that he's only doing what the right wants to hear. They want a head. They want somebody's head. I want justice. Yeah, I could end up being revenge for what they did to J6ers and those who really were not occupying anything and doing nothing wrong other than walking through an open door, held open by Capitol security guards, staying inside velvet ropes, walking through the Capitol, not stealing, not defacing, not doing anything wrong. It is the people's house. Bongino did take a shot, as you gathered, that he said we still have one guy that's an issue. And he's talking about James Comey. Patel also has remarks, Bongino's current boss. You have to keep in mind when Bongino was called to serve as the assistant FBI director, he had a multi-million-dollar empire, radio, syndication, podcast. He had to divest all of that, turn it over to someone else. He can't be drawing that kind of money using that forum if he's serving in the public government. Let me correct that. I think if you're a Democrat, you're allowed to do that. I think they have special rules. They are allowed to do something like that. But then this issue about the cocaine in the White House. You know the security in the White House has to be tight. It should be. And Bongino is absolutely not just appalled, but disgusted by some of the reaction.
We got a fascinating tip on one of these cases, one of the three. I don't want to say which one, but I'm pretty confident that we're going to close out one of them, hopefully shortly. And then the cocaine in the White House, you know, I saw someone on social media, which is fine. Everybody's entitled to an opinion. We work for you, but said, I don't care about the case. Yeah, I do. I was a Secret Service agent. A potentially hazardous material made its way into the White House. Nobody seems to know how it got there, and nobody seemed to investigate it fully. Like, you know, what planet do we live on where that's not of public interest?
I agree. And keep in mind, it was a bag of cocaine. What if it had been a bag of a truly hazardous material that could have spread through the ventilation and killed many? Thank God. And the Hunter Biden connections to cocaine, you can't ignore those. But the Biden family supposedly was not even in the White House when the baggie was found. Does not mean one didn't leave it behind. but they weren't there when it was found. And apparently they could not lift anything, even any kind of latent prints off the baggie, which is pretty damn unusual given the events and the things we can do nowadays. But at that time, the FBI said, we couldn't get anything. And you know what? They ended up destroying it. So you can't do it now because it's gone, literally in a puff of smoke or up someone's nose. And FBI Director Patel said, we continue to have problems created by the former FBI Director, James Comey, and his little walk on the sand that has basically taken us away from things we need to be doing because of new threats.
James Comey. If he wants to come after me, no problem. I've been living rent-free in that guy's head for years, and that's just a bonus. Do you know how many copycats we've had to investigate as a result of that beachside venture from the former director?
Is that right?
Do you know how many agents I've had to take offline from chasing down child sex predators, fentanyl traffickers, terrorists, because everywhere across this country, people are popping up on social media and think that a threat to the life of the President of the United States is a joke and they can do it because he did it? That's what I'm having to deal with every single day. And that's what I'm having to pull my agents and analysts off because he thought it was funny to go out there and make a political statement.
Although he insisted, I didn't put it there. I just happened to walk by and see it. And my wife was with me. And I just took a picture. I didn't think anything about it. You're an idiot. And you're a bigger idiot thinking that we would simply accept that explanation. I'd mentioned earlier, and it will happen before the end of this hour, how does Bongino like his current job based on what he had been doing, when he could say what he wanted, when he wanted, but now is shackled by the duties he has and can hopefully perform for our nation, for you. You'll hear from Bongino on that later in this hour. Coming up, General Jack King on where we stand in Russia and Putin and Ukraine.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
I've got a phone number for you and a website where you can take a free, quick survey to learn how to use artificial intelligence, AI, to put your company on a fast track to the future. Here's the number. It's a 636 area code, 636-689-0545. 689-0545. This is PRI Global. And recently, the St. Louis Business Journal named PRI Global as a leading IT consulting company. 25 years working with hundreds of companies, several Fortune 500, locally and around the world. PRI Global has its own AI lab to develop what's best for your company. Take the free survey and be on your way to the future. 636-689-0545, 689-0545, or go direct priglobal.ai, priglobal.ai. You want the best place to watch baseball or any sport and be able to enjoy premium cigars and whiskeys? Lit Cigar Lounge. Lit has so many events each month. You need to constantly check the Lit Cigar Lounge Facebook. You don't want to miss anything. Plus, you can order food from Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta, delivered within minutes right to your table. By the way, we're in the season for great patio dining. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta has your table waiting. Renewal by Andersen has a great deal for you. $279 off every window. $729 off every patio or entry door. No payments. 0 interest for 18 months. Andersen products increase a home's value by at least 15%. Renewal by Andersen is the full-service window and door replacement division of Andersen. RBA STL. RBA STL. Hey, if you're 50 or older, you do not want to take any risk with your money. In fact, you want Leslie Consulting. My friend Bob Leslie can show you a gain and retain plan. It means that you never lose. Plus, you get up to a 20% bonus on day one. Leslie Consulting, a leader in brokerage and risk management. 314-721-0066. LeslieConsulting.com.
This is News Talk STL.
She wants to dance like Uma Thurman, bury me till I confess. She wants to dance like Uma Thurman, and I can't get you out of my head.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Well, there's no doubt that Russia will do another offensive this summer. They're certainly in preparation for that. But, I mean, right in front of us, I think clearly what is happening is Russia is not going to any peace ceasefire, temporary for 30 days or so, and certainly not to a permanent one in the near term. They've been unwilling to make any concessions whatsoever. And I think the fact that they continue to target civilians and kill civilians, I believe, is Putin's attempt to put more pressure on the president, because the president got involved in stopping this war largely because of the killing that's taken place, and he said it time and time again, and I think it's very sincere about that. And Putin sees that as an opportunity to put pressure on the president to get him to back away. And I think that's what's happening. And listen, 25 years we've known Putin. And for those 25 years, he's been a war criminal and has targeted civilians. He's doing it right now, as we see, on a daily basis.
And he would probably continue. Yet Trump supposedly gave him 2 weeks. We want an answer from you in 2 weeks. Are you really wanting peace, or do you want to continue with this war? And Trump knows how bad it is for the Russians. It's not good for Ukraine either, but certainly not helping the Russians. So there's a report from Axios, which is a left-leaning publication, but here's the way they're proposing the story at this point. The headline, Russia proposes peace talks with Ukraine next week. Right after Trump made those threats, you got 2 weeks to put things in place. Now, that does not mean anything will be accomplished next week or even the week after, but the inching towards a closure is all Russia might need to say, look, we're working on it. Trump will buy that for some period of time, has already. And we know, and we've said this before, and he's not an idiot. They are playing him to the best extent they can. But it reaches a point where he cannot go along with it. According to the Axios report, Russia proposed to Ukraine the countries hold a second round of peace talks next Monday in Istanbul in order to exchange written proposals for a ceasefire and ending the war. Well, why would it matter? According to the Axios report, Ukrainian officials see this as a way to placate President Trump, who's been growing frustrated with Putin, stating that the Russian president is continuing to, quote, play with fire. And he'd also made the remarks that, I don't know what's wrong with it. I think he's not the Putin he used to be. Something's wrong with him. Within hours of that proposal from the Putin advisor, who heads the Russian negotiating team, the Ukrainians gave Moscow a document laying out how they see a path to a ceasefire with negotiations, confidence-building measures at a leader-level meeting. In other words, we're not just talking about a couple of guys in a room. We're talking about people who have authority to make a decision. It does not mean that Putin and Zelensky will be in the same room, nor will Trump, but there will be those apparently at a level they can make decisions, although they will still end up having to go outside to make a call or two and check on something before they continue. Trump said, I feel we're getting close to a ceasefire deal. I don't want to screw it up by doing anything that would maybe increase any threats against Putin or Russia at this point. He said, I'm a lot tougher than others, but you have to know when to use that. We're going to find out soon if Putin is trapping us along or not, and see if he will respond differently. It is a game of chess with lives at stake. And everybody knows it. That would include Russia. Then we have the issue with Iran, because we're not operating in just one sphere of the world right now. We can't afford to. We have to look at the entire conglomerate of terrorists and those who want to kill us, be they a nation or just a group. The only salvation at this point dealing with Iran, they do not have nuclear weapons. But the latest on Iran is maybe promising.
If a deal doesn't come from that meeting, is he going to walk away?
Well, I'm glad you brought up Iran, because I do have an update. The president spoke to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today. They had a productive discussion. They discussed many things, including, of course, the tragic shooting that took place here in Washington, D.C. last night. But they also did talk about a potential deal with Iran, which the president believes is moving along in the right direction. And as the president told me, and he's told all of you, this deal with Iran could end in two ways. It could end in a very positive diplomatic solution, or it could end in a very negative situation for Iran. So that's why these talks are taking place later this week.
So that's a positive. Again, it's not a conclusion, but it's in that direction. You know, Iran, and I would say Iran, but specifically Hamas, decided to release another hostage. And he did an interview, and he talked about how things changed once Hamas recognized, and you can translate that to Iran, recognized that Biden was not going to be able to stay in office, nor was he going to be followed by Kamala, that it was going to be Trump coming into office. Listen to how this hostage, held for 400 plus days, said things began to change immediately.
They were very scared of him. Yeah, they wanted
who?
The terrorists.
We're afraid of Trump.
Yeah, they wanted Kamala to be chosen, to be elected.
You talked politics with them?
Yeah. They wanted Kamala to be elected. But as soon as Donald Trump was elected, they understood that he wants to bring the hostages back home. So immediately the way they treated me changed. So if it's the amount of food, I could say this, that when Trump became president, yeah, the way they treated us changed. For me personally, this is what I
think
felt.
because they anticipated that a deal would come soon.
Yeah.
And that's when they started giving you more food.
Exactly. More food, treated me better, stopped cursing me, stopped spitting on me.
That was a positive for that man. We don't know how that played out with the other hostages. At least we have not heard their stories. And some we never will, because they were killed in the early stages or since the original invasion into Israel. And they might have been killed, you have to acknowledge. They might have been killed by the Israeli Defense Forces trying to get to Hamas, because they were often hiding behind these hostages, using them as human shields. It doesn't make it any easier for the family that's lost a loved one. And then you had this shooting the other day in D.C., outside the Jewish Museum. A young man and woman leaving an event, and this week they were to be in Israel, and he had already bought a ring, and he was going to propose to her in Israel. But both were gunned down by a man who hated Jews and was shouting out, "I'm doing this for Palestine." And you look at how our universities have allowed this kind of hate to boil and simmer and blow over. And they just were ignoring it. And it was all captured in part because of the DEI philosophy. We must have diversity. Well, Jews are not considered diverse. We must have inclusion, including Jews. That's not really inclusion. So here's a story out of MIT, and this is really good. Massachusetts Institute of Technology is shutting down its diversity, equity, and inclusion office after a complete assessment that began 18 months ago. I don't know why the hell it took them 18 months to figure it out. This is stupid. But they finally did reach the right conclusion. And the current president is reading, as I've said many times, MIT is in the talent business. Our success depends on attracting exceptionally talented people of every background from across the country and around the world. Top priorities listed in her memo: how we support our community. Core programs will continue, but we will wind down the central ICEO. That was the equity division project they had in place. Good. You know where there's another big slash coming? Marco Rubio's already said this is going to happen. We're going to start slashing and merging hundreds of jobs in a massive overhaul of the State Department. We have too many people sitting around on their butt doing nothing, or picking up a piece of paper and walking across to someone on the far side of the room. They are going to shut down and cut a lot of jobs from the federal government. Now, you're going to hear the outcry from the federal employees. Oh, my God, their kids, their families will starve. No, they won't. There are 8 million open jobs in this nation right now. Now, I don't know how many will pay the money that these folks are making or what benefits they'll get, but many of them have not been doing anything anyway, except taking your money. So we're talking earlier about how Dan Bongino walked away from a massive radio podcast enterprise to join Kash Patel at the White House, the FBI. Question for Bongino: does he like the current job? This answer actually has two sides. That story when we continue.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
The Napoli heritage of fine dining continues with Napoli Kirkwood. Napoli Kirkwood, now open. So add that to Cafe Napoli in Clayton, Napoli 2 in Town and Country, Napoli 3 in St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C, and don't forget about Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in the district, Chesterfield Valley. All of those locations, plus now open Napoli Kirkwood.
This is Larry Connors, USA. Larry Connors, USA.
The biggest lifestyle change for me has been family-wise. I mean, we already went through this with my time in the Secret Service. But, you know, when the president called and asked if I would take the job, you know, you can't tell your audience for years, go out and do stuff, talk is cheap. And then when the opportunity comes to do stuff, I didn't mean me, you know, I meant you. It's kind of you're a fraud. I mean, you don't sound like a fraud, you are one. So it was a lot. It's been tough on the family. People ask me all the time, you know, do you like it? I say, no, I don't. But I didn't, the president asked me to do this to like it. You know, nobody likes going into an organization like that and having to change things and make big, bold changes. But, you know, I was at one of our facilities yesterday down in Winchester, and a woman who worked there, very nice, said, you know, I used to watch your show. I miss you. I said, you know, I miss me too. You know, part of you, part of you dies a little bit when you see all this stuff from behind the scenes.
And there's no doubt about it, the Dan Bongino radio audience certainly misses him. He was on this station, and we miss him. But he's doing a greater service to the country, serving as the FBI Assistant Director under Kash Patel. And Patel, by the way, and Bongino had mentioned it earlier in the program in case you missed it, I only communicate things when we're getting close to something. I don't try to put out red herrings. And he's been communicating. We're getting ready to come up with some big answers regarding January 6 questions. Is it the bomb devices? Is it how FBI informants were actually taking part in the so-called insurrection? Well, he won't elaborate. But according to Kash Patel, he's been a bit more definitive, and he said, we have information, and a definitive answer on one of the top J6 questions is coming. It is coming, and it has to do in part with how many FBI agents were in the crowd acting like they were Trump supporters, causing mayhem and violence. Patel added, and I'm going to quote him here, he said, the answer may, quote, surprise and shock people because of what past FBI leaders have said about it. You got my attention. And, of course, we'll post it for you as soon as we have it right here on Larry Connors USA. Coming up in the next hour, who's been in charge of the auto pen while Biden has been out in many different ways? We'll begin with that in the next hour. Remember our pledge, one nation under God.
You can hear podcasts of this program at Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook.
John Beal Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call John Beal to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Beal has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Beal. Great patio season to enjoy any of the Cafe Napoli locations. How about the Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield? Enjoying coal-fired pizza, nothing else like it. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield. A few doors down, Lit Cigar Lounge, where you can enjoy premium cigars and whiskeys. Check the Lit Cigar Lounge Facebook for details, plus gift cards for friends. I'll see you at Lit Cigar Lounge in Chesterfield. Ackerman Toyota is #1 in sales for 2024. That is 2 years in a row. It's really no surprise. Ackerman has the largest customer lounge where you can relax, take your time choosing new or premium pre-owned. Ackerman at Hampton and 44. AckermanToyota.com. Thank you for making Ackerman Toyota #1 2 years in a row. AckermanToyota.com. Ackerman Toyota for life. It's that time of season when families, businesses are moving. For local or long distance, I endorse McGuire Moving. Get a date set soon before the schedules are booked. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. McGuire is constantly giving back to our veterans, such as support dogs for our brave. So with McGuire, you're getting excellent service and helping our vets. McGuireMoving.com. So many times, Vincent's Jewelers has helped me surprise someone special. Vincent's locally owned can do the same for you, and you don't have to break the bank to get something really nice, maybe even customized. The smile you're going to get back from that special someone, priceless. Check VincentsJewelers.com every day because new items are arriving and there are special deals. Vincent's, my only jeweler. VincentsJewelers.com. VincentsJewelers.com. I can tell you how to get a free quick quiz to see how artificial intelligence can boost your company's potential. You go to priglobal.ai, priglobal.ai. St. Louis Business Magazine listing PRI as one of the leading IT companies, and PRI has its own AI lab to develop what your business needs. priglobal.ai, priglobal.ai.
This is News Talk STL.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Got myself a gun. Mama always said I'd be the chosen one.
At the end of the day, there's more evidence coming out by the second that would prove that Joe Biden wasn't the one making the decisions during the last 100 days of his administration, perhaps the last 6 months or even the last year. This is when the most activity occurred from the executive order standpoint throughout the whole Biden administration. We don't believe that a lot of these executive orders are legal if for no other reason Joe Biden did not sign them himself. You have to physically sign anything pertaining to the law, whether it be a pardon or whether it be an executive order. What we want to know is who gave the authority to these 4 staffers that we're bringing in. These are the staffers that we've identified as the ones who actually put the documents in the auto pen and pressed the power button to sign Joe Biden's name. We want to know who told them to do that, and we're going to follow the trail, just like we followed the money in the Biden influence family investigation. We're going to follow the trail as to who was using the auto pen.
And that's only natural, because if the president did not sign these documents, and these were executive orders or some kind of actual action taken on his signature, we need to know who was doing that. The auto pen is intended for birthday greetings and things of that nature. Happy anniversary, whatever. When I was at the White House and did the interview with Ronald Reagan, got a picture of us sitting there together, and also his signature. And one of my daughters said, "Oh, he signed it for you." I said, "No, I don't think he really did." At that time, I wasn't sure if there was an auto pen, but now I'm not sure, because I knew he had a lot of folks wanting pictures, and he would have his signature attached to it. But I never saw anything to compare it to, so I don't know. But that's a far cry from enacting legislation or controlling regulatory boards and appointments by a signature that was not done by the president, but by members of his inner staff. Basically, you're looking for a constitutional crisis. There it is, right there in front of you. Somebody using the president's signature to do what they wanted. Thanks for joining us. Hour number 2, Larry Connors USA. And reminding you, when we're on the air, we are streaming video. You can watch. How do you do that? You go to NewsTalkSTL Rumble, Larry Connors USA Rumble, Facebook, Twitter. You also can keep in mind that every program goes up as a podcast when we complete it. You'll find that at NewsTalkSTL, LarryConnorsUSA.com, Larry Connors USA Facebook, or anywhere you get your podcast outlet. You simply type in Larry Connors USA, you're going to get it. And reminding you, with Larry Connors USA, you are going to get news, you're going to get analysis, you're going to get opinion, plus education. You will leave this hour with more knowledge than you had when we began this hour. I promise you. Perfect example. Here you have James Comer, the White House, or rather of the Congressional House, talking about, we want some answers. Who was signing Joe Biden's signature with the auto pen? Who was actually carrying that out? And he makes reference to there are folks that are on the inside that have already acknowledged it was being done that way. And in fact, it ends up finding its way into a book. And Carolyn Levitt of the White House said, don't forget that book that was written by Jake Tapper.
And I'm not saying the president's making it up, but he specifically talks about the auto pen. He thinks that staffers were using this auto pen.
Mm-hmm.
Is there some kind of like a badge that you have to swipe to use an auto pen? Is there a record of that?
I can tell you here at this White House, the president signs any document that has legal implications. The president signs every executive order. He signs every proclamation. He signs pretty much every document that is needed for the president's signature, with the exception of maybe some letters to children. From what we have heard and seen, that was not the case in the previous administration, and the president is raising good questions that are worth looking into.
And again, it's been already raised by the, quote, opposition, those who oppose Trump, such as Jake Tapper, when he and his co-author write the book Original Sin, talking about how they were misled, given false information. They were even acknowledging this possibility. Again, Congressman Comer.
Look, that's what Jake Tapper is saying. That's what he wrote his book about. That's what all of his interviews about his book is saying, that Joe Biden wasn't the one calling the shots. That's a constitutional crisis. But more important to today, to this very moment, many of those executive orders that were signed with the auto pen are what we call Trump-proofing the Trump administration. This is when they knew that Donald Trump was likely going to be the next president of the United States. So they started taking action through executive orders signed with an auto pen at a time when Joe Biden wasn't anywhere near the White House to make it difficult for Donald Trump to reform energy permitting, to make it difficult for Trump to make the federal employees return back to work, to make it difficult for him to eliminate the U.S. Department of Education. These are things Trump's battling in court as a result of whoever made the decision to use the auto pen to sign these executive orders. We think this will have huge legal impacts if we can prove what Jake Tapper and many of us believe, it wasn't Joe Biden.
That's James Comer saying, hey, we found maybe not the smoking auto pen, but one of your own, Jake Tapper, suggesting that that's what was happening. Various staffers, how, did they flash a badge? Were they entitled, or did they have access to just go in the room and put anything they wanted down on it and have it sign it and fill it in later? We don't know, do we? Once again, Carolyn Levitt of the White House.
And President Trump says that he basically thinks unelected Biden staffers concealed his decline so that they could use the levers of power for their own personal gain.
Well, look, that's not just the president thinking that, Peter. There's a new book out. I don't know if any of you have heard about it. Again, a little bit too late, because the American people knew the truth on this from the very beginning. And there were reporters in this room, including some from your network, Peter, I'll give you a little bit of credit here, who have said that clearly Joe Biden's staffers were engaging in this cover-up. So this is common sense. This isn't the president making it up. These are facts that are now finally being revealed.
Facts that CNN, Jake Tapper, and others knew. They knew at the time he was in office. He was incompetent. He was failing. Obviously, he was not capable of running the office, much less running again. And they were making little notes in files and putting them away, say, when he's out of office, I've got a hell of a book I'm going to write, and people will eat it up. They would have eaten it up at that point if he'd been honest with the American people and told them the truth. But your own surrounding squids would be upset with you. You can't do that now. You got to wait till he's gone. Scott Pelley, a fellow Texan, he grew up in Lubbock, Texas. We might have crossed paths at some point. Has a degree from Texas Tech. But Scott Pelley, of course, had been a CBS News reporter, anchor, and then also with 60 Minutes. He was invited to make the commencement speech at Wake Forest University this month. And here's the way the Media Research Center's Chris Hulk wrote, pompous CBS journalist Scott Pelley closed his commencement address at Wake Forest by telling graduates they are, quote, the fierce defenders of democracy, the seekers of truth, the vanguard against ignorance that has taken over the country, suggesting but not stating Donald Trump. That's very similar to what Jake Tapper is now saying. We know as reporters we need to be thorough, we need to do more investigation. We realize, in fact, we were running clips of him yesterday saying we had to realize political creatures do lie. They give out false information. And we should do a better job. No kidding. But more than that, you should not hide and conceal. If you're not smart enough to ask good questions, shame on you, you're a lousy reporter. But otherwise, you're like the reporter who's been sent to go cover the mayor's speech downtown. And you come back into the room and the news director says, so what did the mayor have to say? He said, well, he didn't say anything. Well, why not? He said, well, he got shot. What? He got shot and killed. So I don't have a story. You have a story. It's right there in front of you, but you ignore it. But Scott Pelley the other day at Wake University was painting a dark picture of the Trump agenda in particular. He said, why attack universities? Why attack journalism? Because ignorance works for power. Stop it right there. We're not attacking universities. We're attacking the job they are or are not doing. And we're not attacking good journalism. We're attacking slanted, biased journalism or shoddy journalism or absolutely manufactured, created fake journalism. But he continued, why attack journalism? Because ignorance works for power. Well, Scott, I guess you would know. He said, first, make the truth seekers live in fear. Sue the journalists and their companies for nothing. Then send masked agents to abduct a college student who wrote an editorial in her college paper defending Palestinian rights. He said, with that done, power can rewrite history. They can make criminals heroes, heroes criminals. That's exactly what the left was doing. That's what they've been doing since George Floyd, BLM in St. Louis. He said diversity is now described as illegal. Equity is to be shunned. Inclusion is a dirty word. And then he said, in this moment, this morning, our sacred rule of law is under attack. Journalism is under attack. No, Scott Pelley, you fake journalists who cannot spell the word and understand ethics, you're the ones that are under attack. Now, speaking of those who are on these campuses, Secretary of State Rubio wants to aggressively go after Chinese students currently studying in the U.S. universities if they have clear links to the Communist Party or if they're involved in highly sensitive projects. And, of course, don't forget Trump wants to cut off federal dollars to Harvard and other such schools and put that money to better use.
Harvard has been a disaster. They've taken $5 billion plus. $5 billion. Nobody knew that they were making this cut. If we didn't do this, we would have never found this out, Pam. They're taking $5 billion. And I'd rather see that money go to trade schools. And by the way, they're totally anti-Semitic at Harvard, as you know, and some other colleges, too, in all fairness to them. And it's been exposed, very exposed. And I think they're dealing very badly. Every time they fight, they lose another $250 million. Yesterday, we found another $100 million. And they have, they have a fund, an endowment, $52 billion. All right?
They get a lot of that from the United States, and I think it's ridiculous. I think everyone's coming up to me saying, we love the idea of trade schools. With that kind of money, and money from others, but money from them, you can have the best trade schools anywhere in the world.
And we need trade schools. We need those who don't care for a college education. They're not fit for it. They don't have any interest, but they're into building things and creating things. And there's going to come a day, who's going to fix your plumbing? Who's going to come out and hook up your range if you don't know what to do? In the meantime, a federal judge just today extended the order blocking Trump's attempt to bar Harvard University from enrolling foreign students. Harvard immediately went in and asked for a preliminary injunction, blocking the government's action until the case is decided. It had already been paused last week with a temporary restraining order. But that's what Trump is having to do at every turn. Every turn. They're throwing up blockades and lawsuits. And one of the things that, if you recall, he promised or said, this is what I want to do and I want this to happen, no Social Security taxes. You will not pay taxes on Social Security. Well, guess what?
The campaign promises from President Trump was no tax on Social Security. Now, due to congressional rules, that wasn't able to be included in this bill. How does the president plan to follow through on that campaign promise?
Well, this bill did address taxes for our seniors. It actually allows them to take off significant money from their Social Security payments, get more money back, I should say, put more money in their pockets for various reasons. So this bill delivers on that promise. That's the view of the White House.
And that's the best he can do right now because, again, at every turn, you got the leftists coming after him, trying to throw him off track, derail him entirely. In our next segment coming up, we're going to deal with that in a lot more detail, in particular, the trade tariff war, a decision that is, some say, is creating chaos upon chaos, shutting down his efforts to simply have fair trade with other nations. Who could be against that? You'd be amazed. Actually, you wouldn't because you're an intelligent audience. But anything that would benefit America, the left does not want you to have. And yeah, there'll be those along the line. They'll be hurt for a period of time, but in the end, you'll be back on top. If these folks will just get the hell out of the way. We'll continue with that story. As always, lock and load. Ready on the right.
You are listening to Larry Connors, USA.
I want to tell you more about Wellington Environmental's dustless blasting services. Wellington can blast paint, grease, graffiti, even stripes off parking lots. Truly amazing and powerful. But can Wellington blast something more sensitive? Yes, Wellington can use dry ice to blast soot and odors off smoke-damaged surfaces right after a fire. Currently, Wellington uses dry ice to clean mold off wood inside a home. Why? Well, dry ice immediately disappears, turns into a vapor. That means no mess to clean up, no damaged surfaces. You need to check with Wellington, always researching and practicing with new, better, faster, safer equipment and products for you. And it's very easy to schedule an estimator for your next project. Call Cindy, 314-644-4930, 644-4930. Be well with Wellington. McGuire Moving is Silver certified, which means they are great at relocating senior citizens. In fact, McGuire is a household name because McGuire understands the stress involved when moving older adults. So if you or family members need help moving, I highly recommend McGuire Moving. 314-241-0600. 241-0600. Get a free in-home estimate. McGuireMoving.com. I've got a great evening planned for you. We start with dining at the Oak Street Inn Lounge in Cottleville. We enjoy sunset on the rooftop, then down to the speakeasy. Just one visit, you're going to see why I'm always talking about the Oak Street Inn and Lounge. Plus, you might want to plan a staycation, a romantic getaway. Check out OakStreetInnandLounge.com for various events this summer. Oak Street Inn and Lounge, Cottleville. Oak Street Inn and Lounge, Cottleville.
This is News Talk STL.
Baby, I got your number. Oh, and I know that you got mine. You know that I called you. I called too many times. You can call me, baby. You can call me anytime. You got to call me.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
Federal court has just blocked the bulk of President Trump's sweeping global tariffs from going into effect. The ruling comes from the U.S. Court of International Trade in Manhattan. It's a unique and relatively low-key division of the federal judiciary, but tonight it is flexing its authority in a big way. The three-judge panel ruled in favor of an injunction against the tariffs which have roiled worldwide financial markets in recent months. Unclear right now whether the injunction is temporary or permanent, but the decision is potentially massive political, economic, and legal repercussions. Just moments ago, White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller wrote online, "The judicial coup is out of control."
The judicial coup is out of control. That's the way it's framed by Stephen Miller at the White House. And, of course, immediately the left is going to take an exception to that because only they are allowed to use the words coup, and they use it inappropriately and wrong anyway. But you certainly, as a member of the right, you're not allowed to use that word. That was Anderson Cottonmouth Cooper from CNN talking about how this trade injunction had been issued to stop Donald Trump from conducting business on behalf of the U.S., making trade relations. Have you ever heard anything like that before, where they wanted to stop a president from trying to set up a trade zone, a trade market, things of that nature? No. And they're only doing it because it's Donald Trump. And they're afraid, in the end, Americans would come off better. In the beginning, some might be hurt, but he's made every provision to make sure that it doesn't go down that way. And every time, he's looked for a way to give an off-ramp to the other parties. And right now, they're in a 90-day cooling-off period on something like 60 different countries that he said they would put them into a fast track for an increase in tariffs. But now he said, I'm going to step off the gas, give you guys a chance to work it out. That is negotiating. They're not going to get everything they want. We're not going to get everything we want. The only way that happens is if you have a dictator. Oh, my God. But according to the Democrats, we have a dictator. Well, then he should just go ahead and do whatever the hell he wants. To hell with the courts, shouldn't he? And they will try to point out constantly, Trump doesn't care about the courts and the court rulings. And again, this framing of calling, again, Steve Miller of the White House saying this is more evidence of a judicial coup, trying to keep Trump from doing things by constantly hitting him with lawsuits. Well, Ali Honig is a legal analyst for CNN.
Should note, this was a 3-0 opinion. The three judges on this court were appointed by President Reagan,
President Obama and President Trump. So I don't know where they're getting this coup language from. This is a huge setback for Trump and his administration. As big a deal as the tariffs were, this is as big a deal in the opposite direction. It essentially pauses for now, rules illegal and unconstitutional, almost all of the tariffs that have been in place. And the core of the ruling is this. Typically, it is Congress that controls the tariff power. However, Congress can pass laws giving that power to the president in certain instances. They did that years ago in a statute called the IEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act. Trump then declared, okay, we are in an international economic emergency because of our trade deficits, because of other economic worldwide factors. And this court unanimously 3-0 said that is not an economic emergency. That is not what the law means. Having trade deficits, which we've had for 49 years continuously, that is not an economic emergency and has now struck down for the time being all of those tariffs that were put in place on Trump's first day and then on quote-unquote Liberation Day, April 2nd.
But for 49 years, we did not have a $37 trillion deficit. And we're trying to get control of that. And we want to keep trade. We want trade, but we want to be fair about it. And Trump is not trying to kill the other countries with trade war. I mean, if we have proposed a 50% increase on their tariffs, it's because they're hitting us with a 120%. So they won't be totally wiped out. And then he turns around and says, we're willing to back it off again. You want to back off? We'll back off. The head of Trump's National Economic Council, Kevin Hassett, says this decision of the court last night is a mere hiccup in the plan because of the activist judges. He said in a month or two, you're going to look ahead and see that countries have opened their markets to American products. They have lowered their non-tariff barriers. They have lowered their tariffs. And all these countries have done that are being treated extremely respectfully and well by the U.S. He did add countries that don't abide by the Trump plan. Well, you could expect some kind of reciprocal tariffs. What do you want? Do you want chaos or do you want commerce? Well, once again, back to the views of the CNN analyst, this time David Axelrod.
Trump loves tariffs. We know that. He thinks it's a cure-all for all of America's problems. It will, raise revenues. It'll bring jobs flowing back here, manufacturing jobs. It will restore American respect and balance in the way. All of this. But, in a weird way, I mean, in the short run, I think it creates a lot of havoc because everyone's trying to figure out when this. In the long run, it could save him from himself because these tariffs or bad economic policy, and these tariffs could raise costs on Americans. They're already starting to. So if the result of it is he's stymied in doing something that's going to raise costs for people, it may be a black eye, but it may also be a break for him.
Just legally, what's the recourse for the White House here?
So like any other federal case, this will be appealed. I think the first thing the White House is going to do is ask the Court of Appeals, which in this case is called the Federal Circuit. Usually the circuits are 1st through 11th. This is separate. They're going to ask the Federal Circuit, first of all, to block this ruling, essentially to unblock the tariffs. Then the White House is going to appeal to the Federal Circuit, which again functions as that mid-level Court of Appeals. And then whoever loses there, I think, is very likely to appeal up to the U.S. Supreme Court. This could wind up in front of the U.S. Supreme Court.
It could, but no one wants to see it dragged out that long. Not the countries that are at the other end of the tariffs, nor us. And one other thing, if you're listening to Honig and Axelrod of CNN, they think this is all a house of cards that will fall down on Donald Trump.
If we look at the recent U.S. Supreme Court opinions, they've been skeptical of these sort of dramatic invocations by the administration. As one example, the Supreme Court has found that the Alien Enemies Act, this does not involve an invasion or an incursion. So I think there's some skepticism there towards this sort of tendency the administration has of calling everything an emergency, everything an attack, everything an incursion, rebellion, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we know is that Trump is not a great respecter of rules and laws and norms and institutions, doesn't want to be constrained, wants to expand the power of the executive, and declaring these emergencies has given him the legal pretext to do it.
And Biden did the same thing as to why he raided our oil reserves and putting more gas into your tank at lower prices in November going into the last election. That was not really an emergency. Not an emergency, except for Biden to win. The other part of this thing, the Court of International Trade has also ruled that Trump overstepped his authority. But again, his Financial National Economic Council Director Hassett said, the idea that the fentanyl crisis in America is not an emergency is so appalling to me, I will make sure that when we appeal, this decision will be overturned. Right now, Trump has delayed the highest reciprocal tariffs on about 60 countries for 90 days until July 9 to allow time for negotiations. But he's also leaving a 10% baseline duty in place. The other countries want to do business with us, and we want business with them. In some cases, you want cheaper goods, you're probably going to get some from China somewhere. That's understandable. You want higher wages for U.S. industry workers, well, then this is one way to guarantee it. Rand Paul's not a favor of tariffs, neither Senator Kennedy of Louisiana. I'm not either. But if they accomplish your final goal, I say use them. Don't abuse them, don't overstep them, but use them as you need to. Coming up, FBI Director Patel on how James Comey continues to cause problems inside the FBI and death threats across the nation.
You can connect with Larry on Twitter at Larry Connors USA.
Question: are you looking to unlock the full potential of artificial intelligence for your business? I want you to meet my friends at PRI Global, named by the St. Louis Business Journal as a leading IT consulting firm. 25 years helping local and worldwide companies. PRI Global has a free survey to determine where your company stands in your AI journey. You simply go to priglobal.ai, priglobal.ai. And I also have a phone number, so get ready to copy that number. And I'll remind you that PRI Global has its own AI lab, creating, adapting, developing, pushing the boundaries for what AI can do for you. Here's the number, 636-689-0545. 636-689-0545. Or visit priglobal.ai. priglobal.ai. Here's great news. Napoli Kirkwood is now open. So that means fine dining right in the heart of Kirkwood. So you have the original Cafe Napoli in downtown Clayton, Napoli 2, Town and Country, Napoli 3 on the streets of St. Charles, right next door to Napoli C, plus Napoli Brothers Pasta and Pizza in the Chesterfield Valley. All of those locations, and now adding Napoli Kirkwood. What a great place to dine. Napoli Kirkwood, now open. Renewal by Andersen wants you to know this. Andersen products increase a home's value by at least 15%. Renewal by Andersen is the full-service window and door replacement division of Andersen. How do you get through it? You go to rbastl.com, and here's a deal. $279 off every window, $729 off every patio or entry door. No payments, zero interest, 18 months. RBASTL. You've worked hard for your money, so protect it. Meet my friend Bob Leslie and ask about the Gain and Retain Plan. Leslie Consulting, 40 years in the St. Louis area as a leader in brokerage and risk management. Call 314-721-0066, 721-0066. Oh, and ask Bob how he was the L.A. Dodger #1 pick. LeslieConsulting.com.
This is News Talk STL.
This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.
James Comey. If he wants to come after me, no problem. I've been living rent-free in that guy's head for years, and that's just a bonus. Do you know how many copycats we've had to investigate as a result of that beachside venture from the former director? Is that right? Do you know how many agents I've had to take offline from chasing down child sex predators, fentanyl traffickers, terrorists, because everywhere across this country, people are popping up on social media and think that a threat to the life of the President of the United States is a joke and they can do it because he did it? That's what I'm having to deal with every single day. And that's what I'm having to pull my agents and analysts off because he thought it was funny to go out there and make a political statement.
Yeah, that is James Comey when he took the pictures of the seashells, remember? And claimed, well, I didn't even realize what it meant. I just took the picture. My wife was with me. He wants an excuse to have someone say he was not by himself. Of course, she doesn't know if he went out and did it earlier. And I don't either. But anytime a man drags his wife into something like that, I'm thinking, what a scum. Why do you even have to mention her? But you took the pictures to 8647, basically killed President Trump. And as Kash Patel said, do you know how many threats we've had to run down since that posting? Having to take people off child sex predator cases and other crimes underway to make sure there was not a plot to kill the president. And I would guarantee you there's one almost every day, somewhere. There are plans. Some of them are really unhinged. They will really never do it. Some are unhinged and they'll make an awkward attempt, and they might end up being successful, at least injuring someone. And some might get close enough, as a shooter did in Butler, Pennsylvania. That, though, is not very likely under the Patel FBI. As you well know, he has Dan Bongino serving with him now. And Dan Bongino was talking about when he was called in by Patel and basically President Trump to serve in this position.
The moment Kash and I swore in, we realized that the first thing we had to do is rebuild public trust. This is your FBI. It's not mine. I tell the employees every day, you don't own it, you don't own it, I don't own it. It's like being the center fielder for the Yankees. That'll live with you forever, but you don't own the Yankees. It's a proud franchise. The place has taken a reputational hit. There is zero question about it. There were a lot of bad actors. One of them still out there causing us all kinds of trouble. So we had to fix it and rebuild public trust. One of the ways to do it is these cases of significant public interest that matter. You know, we had 2 pipe bombs planted on January 6th. I mean, we were told by partisan actors out there this was the insurrection, the world was going to fall apart, and no one seemed to show any interest in this case. The second we got in, I put a team on it, and I said, I want answers on this. And I'm pretty confident that we're closing in on some suspects. The reason, by the way, I use social media with these cases, I'm trying to communicate on social media, is nothing's by accident, guys. I do nothing by accident. Every time I put a tweet out on it, we get tips. We got a fascinating tip on one of these cases, one of the 3. I don't want to say which one, but I'm pretty confident that we're going to close out one of them, hopefully shortly.
And while he will not be more definitive, there's a lot of speculation and supposedly informed sources say this involves the guy who was planning the pipe bombs. And they were bombs. They were not inactive devices planted at the Republican National Committee headquarters and the Democrat National Committee headquarters. That was probably done to show that it was not just as someone going after Trump people, but after all politicians. But the FBI supposedly is suggesting one top official, not Bongino, but another one suggesting that after 4 years, the Bureau is getting close to a major break in this case. Bongino, as you were hearing just then, was on Fox and Friends this morning saying this case is a top priority. We renewed the focus on the case earlier this year. We released new video footage showing the person planning the bombs around the area, and they got a tip that now they're following up very closely. There's a $500,000 reward. That'll make almost any cockroach come out from under the cover and point to the guy at some point. And then you've got, of course, the Epstein case. I'm not satisfied what we've been told so far by Bongino and Patel on that. They say it was a suicide. They've seen all of the evidence and so forth. Well, then release all of that to the general public. There's no reason to keep any names out except names of victims of Jeffrey Epstein. I want to know who was on duty that night at the cell, who was not there, who was supposed to be there, why cameras were down, which ones, why were they down. I mean, I've got a lot of questions. And I want to believe Patel and Bongino on this, but I'm not accepting it was a suicide at this point. That's not being a conspiracy theorist. I'm saying, give me the facts. You say you've seen them, and that's all it points to. I've covered a lot of suicides in my career, and many of them turned out to be, quote, not suicide. And then you have the cocaine found in the White House. This is one that really does tick off Bongino.
We got a fascinating tip on one of these cases, one of the three. I don't want to say which one, but I'm pretty confident that we're going to close out one of them, hopefully shortly. And then the cocaine in the White House, you know, I saw someone on social media, which is fine. Everybody's entitled to an opinion. We work for you, but said, I don't care about the case. Yeah, I do. I was a Secret Service agent. A potentially hazardous material made its way into the White House. Nobody seems to know how it got there, and nobody seemed to investigate it fully. Like, you know, what planet do we live on where that's not of public interest?
I agree. That would just be routine. Well, just today, word was sent out from FBI headquarters to leadership capacity of the FBI, and this is a radical departure from the Biden administration. The FBI Assistant Director for Public Affairs said, I received several questions about the FBI stance on Pride Month and what related activities FBI divisions and employees should or should not participate in. He said, so this morning I'm taking the opportunity to make sure the FBI leadership expectations are clear. There should be no official FBI action, events, or messaging regarding Pride Month. The email explains as employees, you're free to do as you like in your personal capacity or on your own time. But on FBI time, using FBI resources, your bureau affiliation, you are to take no official actions regarding Pride Month one way or the other. That would take us away from our core mission. Our core mission is to protect Americans. There's one thing Donald Trump has done that I don't like. I mean, when he did the golden sneakers and then came out with the tokens and the coins, the gold coin, it just causes a lot of furor in the people raising questions. It can serve as a distraction, but I don't like it because I think it diminishes the office, in my opinion. But he made the decision. He's not getting the money from it. But yet, because it was presented as, you know, you pay for this, you get these coins, a lot of the left are saying, oh, so you can buy access to the president by buying these coins?
Did anyone in the White House or in the White House counsel's office advised the president against holding this sweepstakes, whereby people who spent the most money on his Trump coin would then have access to the president at this dinner.
Again, the president has been asked about this. He has addressed this. I have also stated previously from this podium that the president is abiding by all conflict of interest laws that are applicable to the president. And I think everybody, the American public, believe it's absurd for anyone to insinuate that this president is profiting off of the presidency. This president was incredibly successful before giving it all up to serve our country publicly. And not only has he lost wealth, but he also almost lost his life. He has sacrificed a lot to be here, and to suggest otherwise is frankly completely absurd.
It's so refreshing to hear her compared to Karine Jean-Pierre. No stuttering, very direct, not having to look at notes. She knows the subject. There's a leftist strategist coming forward who is trying to get the Democrats, hey, you need to pay attention. Here's how you're going to win the election the next time around. You're not going after the correct voters. You need to be going after a target that is young, white, bisexual, male.
I love young men. I love frat guys. And in that, I realized, like, even the ones that identify as conservative are almost always pro-choice. They're almost always pro-gay marriage. You'd be surprised at the number of them who supported Black Lives Matter. And so I feel like people just kind of lump them into this box when the truth is, again, a lot of them are with us on the issues. They're just not part of our coalition because they feel like they're not welcomed in it.
And that might be because your coalition goes way beyond what they would be willing to accept. They might be willing to accept they have gay friends as well. If an adult couple wants to get married, that's fine. But when you start pushing it on kids, then you lose your connection. But this strategist is telling other Democrats, you need to get out there and fight to win the white male bisexual. That's what we need. Think that'll help them? Well, the other thing they could be going after, if they can get them a chance to vote, and they're working on it, believe me, the Chinese foreign students in our nation, many are estimated to be 18 to 20% that are going to our universities. It's estimated 18 to 20% are actual Chinese communist spies. They're not just students posing, they are actual spies. So we need better screening of those coming in, better vetting to know exactly who they are, what their plans are. Louisiana Senator John Kennedy has one of his quips that is very funny and yet not so funny.
I welcome international students. I don't welcome international students who come here and break the law. I don't welcome international students who come here and threaten our national security. The Chinese Communist Party has an horrific record of sending students to America to do that. And we do need to be careful. It would be nice if some of our universities, like Harvard, would help us screen these students rather than contribute to the problem. So I support what Secretary Rubio is doing. The simple fact of the matter is this has nothing to do with diversity or inclusion. The Chinese Communist Party will steal the hair off your head.
I think that happened to me. I think I walked past a Chinese communist spy because I had a full head of hair. I don't know what happened to it. The effort to freeze Harvard from bringing in more Chinese foreign nationals or any foreign nationals is once again being hit with a lawsuit. Had to be worked out again. Let me close on a popular note for you, and this involves Vic Perselli. Vic and Ken show. Ken the Thunder Stealer. June, we're listing as Vic for Vets Month. Every day in June, which begins Sunday, but every day in June, Ken and Vic will honor a veteran. Please listen here. Do you have a veteran that you think deserves such an honor, living or dead? It's during our Medal of Honor June. If you have someone in your family or your close circle that served that we can honor, please send that information to Ken, the producer for Vic Perselli. And then we're going to read one a day and push it out on social media honoring them. We will do that daily. All you have to do is send the information to Ken at NewsTalkSTL. We need the name, the rank, the branch of service, if you can provide that, date of service. You can list any medals or awards. You can even add a little storytelling about what they did, what they accomplished. June is Vic for Vets Month. We're going to honor our vets. And as you heard from the FBI earlier, June is not going to be honored as Pride Month by the FBI. You can get those into us right now. We'll start moving into them next week. And remember our pledge. One nation under God.
You can follow Larry on Larry Connors USA Facebook. Larry Connors USA Facebook. This is Larry Connors USA. Larry Connors USA.